Welcome, wanderer of thought. Lay your head gently upon your pillow. Let the hush of evening gather around you like a soft woolen cloak drawn close by the hearth. Tonight, we journey back in time, not to battlefields or kings, but to quiet meadows and muddy footpaths, to the simple, steady rhythm of everyday life in medieval Britain. A world not of sword and crown, but of bread and firelight, sheep and soil, and the soft turning of the seasons. Close your eyes. You're standing now in a dew-covered field, somewhere in the English countryside. The year is perhaps 1260. The village is small. The world is quiet. And our story begins. The cockerel calls long before the sun rises. A low, throaty sound, followed by the bleating of goats from the pen. In a one-room timber cottage, a family begins to stir. The father, wrapped in his wool tunic, stokes the hearth, coals still warm from the night. He adds a twist of dry straw and kindling. The first orange glow flickers to life. In the half-light, the mother kneads rye dough on a wooden board, while children pull on rough-spun hose and tunics. Outside, mist drapes low across the fields. The muddy track to the village well is already trodden by barefoot steps. A milkmaid passes with a sloshing pail. The air smells of damp hay, wood smoke, and distant baking bread. In the monastery nearby, a bell rings softly, calling monks to morning prayer. And so begins another day. The sun now filters through wooden shutters, casting gentle light onto packed earth floors. The village is alive, yet never rushed. Here, in the stillness of medieval life, every task is done with care, without the hum of machines or the clatter of haste. In the cottage, the youngest child collects eggs from the chicken coop, each warm shell nestled in straw. The mother sets porridge to simmer in an iron pot, stirring slowly with a carved wooden spoon. Steam rises, carrying the scent of oats and hearth smoke. Outside, the blacksmith sharpens his tools in the low forge. The dull thump of a hammer rings through the morning air. Across the lane, a woman draws water from the communal well, balancing the bucket on her hip, her linen veil fluttering in the breeze. Men gather near the field's edge, their hands calloused, eyes steady. With oxen yoked and plow in hand, they speak little. Work is sacred here, and silence is companionable. The soil, dark and heavy with spring rains, turns under the blade. Birdsong rises, steady as breath. In the distance, a shepherd whistles to his dog. Woolly shapes move slowly up the hill, hooves muffled in dew-soaked grass. And so the day unfolds, with the patience of centuries. By midday, the village is in motion, but even its busiest hours are hushed by modern standards. Bread is fetched from the communal oven, round loaves dusted with flour, their crusts golden and cracked. Traders arrive from neighboring hamlets, leading donkeys with woven baskets of apples, salted fish, and wool. The market square is no more than a wide patch of trampled earth beside the chapel. There is no shouting, just murmured greetings, the occasional laugh, the sound of chickens in wicker cages. A tinker displays tin spoons and rough-hewn knives. A woman sells ribbons dyed in soft colors, woad blue, madder red. Children chase each other around the stall legs, giggling. A friar walks past, his robe brushing the ground, offering blessings in exchange for a bit of bread. Near the tavern, an old man plays a simple tune on a wooden pipe, the notes lilting gently through the warm air. No one hurries. The day is long. The work is honest. As the sun climbs, the shadows grow short, and the village hums with a different rhythm. The morning's heavy tasks give way to softer work. the kind done with nimble hands and focused minds. Inside a shaded cottage, a woman spins flax into thread. Her spindle moves with gentle grace, the rhythm familiar, like a lullaby in motion. The thread slips through her fingers, becoming part of a cloth that will warm someone through winter. Next door, a boy carves a wooden spoon, sitting cross-legged in the doorway. His tongue pokes out in concentration, his fingers smoothed by practice. The handle curves like a river bend. In a corner by the fire, an old man repairs shoes, leather worn soft by years of walking muddy roads. His tools clink gently against stone, and now and then he hums an old tune no one quite remembers the words to. In the fields beyond, herbs are gathered: comfrey, lavender, rosemary. The healer's apprentice binds them with twine, storing them in baskets for drying later near the hearth. Time moves quietly here. No one watches clocks. Only the sun and the tolling of distant bells remind them of the hour. In the heart of the village sits the cooper's shop, a place of quiet precision. Barrels line the walls, some filled with rainwater, others waiting to store ale or salted meat. The cooper, broad of back and quiet of voice, works by instinct, his mallet tapping wooden staves into perfect circles. Each piece fits snugly with the next, like puzzle work born of long experience. Next door, the weaver stretches woolen threads across a loom. The shuttle passes back and forth with a gentle thock-thock, the pattern growing slowly, line by line. She hums a folk tune as she works, the kind passed down from grandmother to grandchild. In a smaller hut, the village potter shapes clay on a foot-powered wheel. His fingers guide the form into bowls and jugs, simple, sturdy, and good. Near him, shelves of drying pottery catch the light like earthy sculptures. These crafts are more than survival. They are expression. Each item bears the mark of the hands that made it. And in this way, the village breathes, not just with life, but with meaning.
As the sun begins to lower, casting long golden streaks across the village paths, the pace of life slows again. Even the birds quiet their songs. Inside cottages, cooking pots bubble over small hearths. The scent of stew, turnips, barley, perhaps a bit of salted pork, fills the air. Bread is broken by hand, passed around wooden tables where family sits close, shoulders brushing, firelight dancing in their eyes. Outside, the smith douses his fire, steam hissing as water meets glowing iron. A woman brings her hens into the coop. Children wash their hands with cold water from a basin, giggling and splashing. The village gathers its light close, candles lit, wicks trimmed with care. In one home, a grandfather tells a story of the old days, of saints and beasts, as little ones curl into their mother's laps. The evening is soft, not silent. There is the gentle clatter of bowls, the low murmur of voices, the distant hoot of an owl beyond the fields, and the wind, always the wind, moving like a whisper through the hedgerows. As the last light of day fades behind the hills, there is no rush to sleep. Instead, the people of the village turn to stories. In one house, a young man recites a tale of Robin Hood, his voice low and dramatic. In another, an old widow chants a prayer in Latin, the syllables strange but comforting. Children listen wide-eyed, wrapped in woolen blankets. The flames of the hearth sway gently, sending shadows dancing across the walls. A dog dozes beside the fire, tail twitching in a dream. Above, the roof creaks softly in the night wind. A mouse scurries across a ceiling beam. And far in the distance, a church bell rings once, just once, to mark the closing of day. Sleep begins to steal into the room like a kindly spirit. Heavy eyelids droop. Heads rest on shoulders. No one speaks now. There is only the fire, the breath, and the deepening night. The fire is burned low. Only glowing embers remain, casting a reddish hue across the stones. In the hush of the cottage, blankets are drawn tight. The rushlights are extinguished with a soft puff, like a sigh. The room smells of herbs drying on the beams, of ash and of warmth. Outside, the village is wrapped in deep silence. The only sound is the soft creak of timber, the rustle of straw beds, and the wind gently sweeping down from the hills. Sometimes, an owl calls from the treetops. A long, slow note, distant and dreamlike. The stars stretch above the thatched rooftops, their light unhindered by lamps or noise. The Milky Way glows across the sky like spilled flour over midnight velvet. Inside every cottage, bodies curl into rest. In the small stone chapel, a single candle still flickers. A monk kneels, murmuring a prayer in the hush, words meant not to stir, but to soothe. The world feels held, as if the entire village breathes in unison, slowly, deeply, safely. You too now drift into this place. The steady rhythm of a time long gone but never loud, where sleep came with the stars and dreams moved with the wind. And so, dear listener, the village sleeps. You've walked its paths, tasted its bread, felt the warmth of its fire. You've watched as time passed slowly, like clouds moving across an endless sky. This was not a world of noise or rush. It was a world of rhythm, of breath and bell, of harvest and hearth. And though its people have long since faded into earth and wind, their quiet lives still echo in the stillness of night. Let them stay with you now. As your breath slows, your body softens, and sleep, that gentle visitor, settles in beside you. Good night. And may your dreams be made of candlelight meadows and the soft song of history. And then, without urgency, the sky begins to pale. Before the rooster even calls, the stars fade behind a silver horizon. Another day is on its way, slow and certain, like it has been for centuries. Inside the cottage, the fire is stirred back to life. A faint crackle, a curl of smoke. The orange glow stretches its arms again across the stone hearth. The woman pulls her shawl tight and steps outside, basket in hand, her feet touching the cool earth. She gathers eggs again. The hens ruffle their feathers and cluck softly. The morning air smells like wet leaves and wood smoke. The village awakens, not with alarms or clocks, but with breath, light, and memory. The rhythm returns, churn the butter, sweep the stoop, feed the pigs, mend the thatch. Even the bees hum their soft songs among the herbs near the garden wall. In this world, nothing is wasted. Every scrap has purpose, every hour a shape. The children stir from their straw beds, rubbing their eyes, chasing sleep from their lashes. They stretch, yawn, and begin again. The monk in the chapel lights the first candle of the day, his footsteps echoing softly against the stone floor. And so, the circle continues. Later in the day, someone walks the narrow path leading out of the village, perhaps to the next hamlet, or the woods, or to fetch herbs from the forest glade. The path winds between hedgerows and low stone walls. Here, mushrooms grow at the roots of trees and birds chatter in the canopy overhead. The traveler passes an old shepherd tending his flock. They nod to each other, wordless and warm. No rush, no worry, only steps and time. In a small clearing, a woman kneels beside a stream, She washes linen in the clear water, humming softly to herself. The cloth snaps gently as she lifts it to the breeze. In the woods, the light is dappled. Sunlight breaks through branches in shifting patterns. The forest is not feared here. It is known like an old friend. A squirrel scurries up a tree. A pair of doves rise into the sky. Even the breeze feels like it remembers you. The world feels vast, yet kind, ancient, yet alive. As the sun reaches its peak, and the village breathes a little easier, the people sometimes gather without announcement, without pomp. Perhaps it's the feast day of a local saint, or maybe the harvest has been good. Whatever the cause, the joy is always the same, quiet, shared, and warm. In the clearing near the old oak tree, someone begins to play a lute. Its wooden body hums with a melody older than memory. A small group of villagers forms a circle, some clapping, some swaying, others simply smiling with eyes closed. Children twirl barefoot in the grass, their laughter like birdsong. A young girl hands out small hand-woven flower crowns made from wild daisies and ivy. Near a table draped with homespun cloth, women lay out their offerings, pies made with root vegetables, sweet berry tarts, cider in clay jugs. There is no stage, no speeches, just the simple act of being together. A moment where time rests, and people remember that even the smallest life contains joy. As the feast continues, the music shifts into something slower. An old man sings, a ballad of a knight who once loved a baker's daughter. The story means nothing and everything. It's not about truth. It's about time spent in closeness. A woman plucks a psaltery, each note floating like a feather on wind. You hear the rhythm of footsteps on soft grass. You hear the rustling of linen skirts. You hear the breath of the earth. By the hedgerow, a boy listens quietly while carving a bit of wood into a whistle. His grandfather nods in approval, not interrupting, just watching. Even a quiet moment is a gift here. There is no rush to return to work. Even the bees seem to fly slower. It is as if the world has agreed for just a little while to be still. The sun lowers again, tracing golden fingers across the rooftops. The shadows grow longer, stretching over the hedgerows, curling at the feet of oxen and trees. Some villagers step away for a moment, into the fields or down the wooded paths just to walk. Not for duty, but for quiet, for peace. You might see a couple walking hand in hand, heads bowed in conversation too soft to carry, or a solitary woman picking late chamomile, her basket near full. In the small stone chapel, candles are being lit once again. Their flames shimmer against stained glass as the old priest murmurs a vesper prayer. No grand sermon, just a blessing for rest, for safety, for one more peaceful night beneath God's stars. The bell rings, once, twice. Its tone is low and kind. The sound rolls across the land like warm water poured into a bowl. A boy sits at the edge of a field, watching, his knees drawn to his chest, his eyes lifted. He counts the stars as they appear, blinking into place like shy lanterns in the sky. As night deepens, the sky becomes a cathedral. The stars are brighter now, bold and ancient. They shine with the same cold, perfect light seen by every soul who ever lived here. By the farmers, the bakers, the monks, the children. By those forgotten, and those remembered only in whispers. Someone points out constellations, the hunter, the plow, the swan. A little girl gasps, certain she's seen a shooting star. Her father smiles, lifting her onto his shoulder so she can see even more. The fire has burned down again, and only quiet voices remain, sharing soft stories meant only for the night. Stories of spirits in the woods, of old saints who tamed storms, of dreams that visit like birds when you sleep near hawthorn trees. The wind carries these tales like petals, not to be recorded, not to be published, only to be lived once and remembered in dreams. And the sky, wide and full, listens. In medieval life, the seasons were not just time. They were the very shape of being. Spring comes first, not with trumpets, but with thaw. Frozen soil softens. The rivers, once stiff with ice, begin to sing again, trickling gently through the woods. Snowdrops push through the cold earth like shy hands, and lambs wobble on new legs in dewy fields. The people watch with reverence. A woman carries willow twigs in her apron. A boy kneels to examine a violet blooming near a fence post. The monastery garden is tended once more. Rows straightened, compost turned, prayer whispered with every seed pressed into soil. There is hope here, but it is gentle, a kind of memory returning to the land, a promise spoken in green shoots and birdsong. Summer follows with wide blue skies and golden afternoons. It is the time of long walks, of barefoot steps in warm dust, of harvesting herbs and drying linens in the sun. Bees hum heavily through air thick with scent, lavender, mint, wild garlic. Wheat fields ripple like cloth in the breeze, and children build tiny boats of bark to float down clear streams. Meals are eaten outside. The bread is crustier, the berries are fresh, and the cider is sweeter under sun. In the forest, mushrooms bloom at the feet of oaks, and the air smells like sap and pine. Even the silence is warmer now. It clings to the stones, rests in the shade, and dances in the long golden light before evening. Autumn brings its own quiet magic, quieter, cooler, but full of color. Apples are gathered in wicker baskets. The air smells like wood smoke and cider, and leaves tumble in spirals down cobbled paths. In every home, something is being stored. Dried herbs in cloth bags, salted meat in stone jars, bundles of firewood tied with twine. The village feels both busy and slow. The work is necessary but unhurried. A woman crushes walnuts with a stone. A boy hangs onions from a wooden beam. The sun no longer burns, but it still blesses. In the chapel, candles are lit earlier, and prayers seem to echo longer. Evenings stretch, and the fires burn higher. And then comes winter, not feared, but embraced like sleep. Snow gathers softly on thatched rooftops. Footsteps are muffled in the frost. The well is crusted with ice at the edges, and the trees wear silence like cloaks. Indoors, the fire never dies. It crackles steadily, warming thick wool blankets, boiling stews heavy with lentils and herbs. People stay close. They mend, they sing, they remember. A girl recites riddles beside her grandmother. A young man writes with charcoal on a scrap of linen, his thoughts, his poems, his dreams. The village is slow, the land is still, and eventime seems to curl up by the hearth and fall asleep. To live in medieval Britain was to live with stories, not told for entertainment, but woven into the very shape of each day. The calendar itself was stitched with holy days and half-remembered traditions. Candlemas, Lammas, Michaelmas, and All Hallows' Eve, each brought its own small celebration. Children carved turnips into lanterns to ward off spirits. Women tied red threads around doors to keep away illness. On May Day, fresh flowers were braided into hair, and girls danced barefoot around poles wrapped in ribbons. The people believed, not always in the way scholars might write, but in a way that felt. They believed bread must never be cut at night, that certain trees could listen, that bells chased away storms. And when the saints' days came, the villagers gathered, not in grand halls, but under trees and beside fire pits. They told stories of the green man, of black dogs with burning eyes, of the white lady who wandered the hills before snow. Each tale brought wonder, not fear, not doubt, just a quiet sense that the world was deeper than it seemed. In the quiet corners of the land, far from the fields and laughter, stood the monasteries. Stone walls thick and cool, windows narrow and high. Within them, silence deep and sacred. The monks rose before dawn. They walked in pairs down echoing halls. They tended bees, copied manuscripts, and chanted prayers in Latin with voices as soft as wind. In the scriptorium, ink flowed onto vellum like a river through time. Every letter was a meditation, every page a slow unfolding of the eternal. Visitors came sometimes, seeking herbs for fevers or blessings for the harvest. The monks gave humbly, dried sage, a salve, a whispered word, a piece of bread still warm. But mostly they simply watched the seasons change. They knew the names of every bird, every saint, every phase of the moon. Their time moved in bells, not hours, in psalms, not sentences. And in their silence, the world found peace. Even beyond church and custom, there was a sense that the land itself was alive, not feared, but respected, not named, but known. The farmers would pause before entering a new field. Shepherds would speak softly to the hills as if they might answer. Children left crumbs for small unseen creatures beneath ancient trees. Rivers were never just water. They were voices, old ones. Even stones seemed to remember things. Old ones gathered moss like secrets. Paths worn into earth by generations felt like veins carrying memory. A woman might sing while spinning wool, not because someone taught her to, but because the land asked for it. And when the sun went down and the stars returned, they would listen. To the trees, to the wind, to the heartbeat of the soil beneath their feet. And they would sleep, not as escape, but as a return. In the corner of every cottage there is a shelf. Not grand, not polished, but sacred all the same. On it sit the small things that hold everything. A wooden comb once carved by a grandfather. A scrap of cloth, embroidered with a mother's first stitches. A pewter cup passed down through 5 hands, dented but still whole. These aren't riches, but they are riches of a kind that cannot be bought. In a chest under a bed, dried lavender sewn into a pouch, the last letter a soldier sent home, the bones of a worn-out rosary. Each item holds a story and no one rushes to tell it. It is enough to hold it, to remember quietly. Old women tell tales of rain that fell on a wedding day, and how the bride laughed anyway. Old men sing half-songs they learned as boys, their voices crackling like the fire. Memory in medieval life wasn't kept in books alone. It was kept in rhythm, in the way a door creaked, in the recipe only a daughter knew by watching. It lived in the pause before lighting a candle, in the way someone touched the wall when leaving a room for the last time, in the still spaces between chores and prayers, between sleep and song. Things are passed down. A father teaches his son to tie a bundle of twigs just right so it burns evenly. A mother shows her daughter how to mend wool without puckering the weave. But it is more than skill. It is presence. To teach slowly, patiently, without words, when they are not needed. Some children will remember the taste of a stew made once in spring, or the smell of wet earth after a long walk with their uncle. And when they grow old, they will do the same, not because they must, but because it feels right. Stories are whispered over kneading dough, told during combing hair, sung softly into a sleeping child's dreams. There is no ceremony to it, but there is reverence, a gentle thread tying one life to another. And this is how a world survives, not through parchment or stone, but through the curl of a hand, the sound of a lullaby, the shape of a shadow on a wall remembered 60 winters later. Now the world lies still again. The wheat fields whisper. The forest holds its breath. The stream flows over stones that remember every foot that has crossed them. The stars keep their place. The sky curls low over the land like a blanket. And the village, your village, the one you've walked in your dreams, rests. You know now how they lived, not as characters in a tale, but as people whose hearts beat quietly, just like yours. They worked, they sang, they watched the seasons pass, and now they sleep. As you will soon, the fire dims, the wind settles, and your breath grows softer, deeper, slower. Let yourself go now to the same sleep they knew, simple, still, safe. And now we come to the end, not the end of the world we visited, for that still lingers in the quiet corners of memory, but the end of our time together in it. You have walked cobbled paths in bare feet, listened to the hush of monks at prayer, tasted bread pulled from an old hearth, and watched stars bloom in a black velvet sky. You have lived for a while, in a rhythm not rushed, in a world shaped by hands, not machines, a place where days unfolded like petals, slow, soft, and full of small wonder. The people you met, though long gone, are not lost. They live in the silence between your breaths, in the hush before you sleep, in the warmth of candlelight on an old wall. The baker, the shepherd, the weaver, the child, laughing at geese, they are part of you now. As you lie there, still and safe, you carry their quiet with you. You've seen how they lived, not perfectly, not grandly, but beautifully, in the only way that mattered, with care, with rhythm, and with deep belonging. And now, as your eyelids grow heavy, and the last flickers of this story dim like a fire, settling into ash, you too return to the great sleep they once knew. Let this story wrap around you like wool. Let your breath rise and fall like the hills of old Britain. Let go. You are safe, you are warm, you are home. Good night.